Before I get into this video, I want to preface this by saying some of the stories involved in today's video are a little gory in detail. The last story involves gruesome details and suicide. If you would like to skip or not participate in the final video, I completely understand. Thank you. Let me just start this story off by saying I don't really believe in the supernatural. I don't watch these ghost hunting TV shows because I think they're just full of it. Anytime someone tells me a ghost story, I have a hard time believing it. However, there's still one experience that I truly cannot explain. I've thought of many different possibilities, but nothing connects. This happened when I visited my family in Costa Rica back in 2014. I was 12 at the time, and so was my cousin. Since we were staying at my cousin's house during most of the visit, I slept in his room with him. We would always stay up late, messing around and playing video games. One night we were laying in our beds talking, and we got on the subject of demons. I told him I didn't really believe in them, and I thought Ouija boards were stupid too. We kept talking about it, and I eventually got curious and asked him, why don't we just try to talk to one? Of course, we didn't really have a Ouija board. Well, as a joke, I just said to the room, if anything is in here, knock on the wall 2 times. All of a sudden, I hear a knock on my cousin's side of the room. We both freak out, not knowing what the hell did that. So as we slip out of our bed sheets, after hiding in them for what seemed 10 to 15 minutes, I asked it another question. I don't remember what I asked, but it was a simple yes or no question. 1 knock for no, 2 knocks for yes. It answered my question. I kept hearing it on my cousin's side of the room. I started getting suspicious of the whole thing, because my cousin could have been knocking on the wall the whole time. I tell my cousin to take off his sheets so we can both see his hands and feet. He does what I say, so I ask this thing another question. I hear the knocking coming from his side of the room again. At this point, I'm confused, but also still suspicious. To make it even more impossible for my cousin to trick me, I asked the thing to knock on my side of the wall instead of my cousin's. To my surprise, it knocked on my side of the wall, which was literally on the other side of the room. I started asking this thing more questions, and things got even weirder. Hearing knocks on the ceiling, in his closet, on the floor, just about everywhere in that room. To this day, I have no idea what caused this. I have asked everyone in my family if they pulled a prank on us, but no one knows what happened. Just recently, I put 2 and 2 together and realized that that was the day we went to an abandoned asylum up the mountains of Costa Rica. It was the only conclusion that I could come up with, but if anyone knows what this could be, please give me some possible explanations. It was the end of 2018, our first getaway together as a couple. When we went to the Appalachian Trail in Virginia, we were naive. We thought it would be more romantic to camp out as far off the beaten track as possible. We walked really far into the wilderness and got to a spot where no one passed us all afternoon. We were making s'mores over the campfire after it had just gotten dark. It was twilight. All of a sudden, my boyfriend, who has 20/20 vision, saw a man approaching us slowly. He was creeping up on us. At first, we thought it was a park ranger coming to tell us to put out our campfire. I began to hide the weed, thinking this was our biggest concern. My boyfriend called out to him, "Hey, can I help you?" We thought it was weird that he didn't have any kind of light on him. He didn't have a camping bag, nothing for camping. Why was he out here so far with no camping gear at night? No light. He sped up after my boyfriend called out and came right at him. He had this strange look in his eyes. The look was absent, blank, and weird. He didn't answer my boyfriend, he just kept walking right at him. Red flags going off at this point. When my boyfriend realized it wasn't a park ranger, he quickly put his hand in his pocket where he had concealed a knife. He made it clear he had a weapon. It was only after my boyfriend did this at the time the guy acknowledged us. He said something weird. "Oh, I was just wondering if y'all were having a party." Remember, we were miles away from a single soul, and it was beginning to get dark when he began to approach us slowly without a flashlight. He had no camping gear with him, just a tiny drawstring bag on his back. After he asked us what we were doing, we didn't give him any answers but asked him what was going on. He didn't answer. He just looked past my boyfriend towards the site. It was windy, so we had to put up a tarp to shield ourselves. This also meant that the guy approaching us couldn't see how many people were at our site. He asked, "How many people you got with you?" He began to circle our site to check us out. He asked again if we had any other people with us, and my boyfriend didn't answer. He carried on circling our camp. Now bear in mind we had our setup on this crazy steep hill. It was the only spot for miles that was possible to put up a camp. However, he told us that he was going to set up a camp nearby. He proceeded to walk off in the direction straight up the hill. We knew for a fact he couldn't put a campsite up there because of the terrain. Remember, he had no light, no bag, no camping gear, nothing. We were silent. We listened to his footsteps on the leaves as he walked up the hill in this direction, completely off the path. He walked for about 30 seconds, and then his footsteps stopped completely. He was just still. Silent. We knew he was still there, but we couldn't see him. It was dark. At this point, I was freaking out. I didn't want to seem like a pussy in front of my boyfriend. We had to talk about whether we needed to leave. My boyfriend handed me a knife and said if anything happens to him, I should run. At this point, I knew it just wasn't me freaking out unnecessarily. He said we needed to get out of there and just to grab essential items. I was scared that this guy was going to shoot us dead. Later on, when I told my boyfriend about this, he said no. This was the type of guy who would probably prefer to stab his victims to death. We began to walk, basically run, down the trail in pitch black with our lights off. My boyfriend looked back to see him staring at one point. He ran behind me to protect me. This experience stuck with me. I still can't think of a rational, non-menacing reason why this guy was there at night. I've tried. This was now at the end of 2018, but my boyfriend, now my husband, and I were remembering it last night, and I decided to type into Google if there had been any murders in that same place around that same time. There was. A few months after our incident on the same trail, an unhinged man with crazy eyes approached some hikers at twilight as it was getting dark. he behaved in a deranged and aggressive manner before stabbing a man to death with a 17-inch knife. A woman he was with ran for her life down the hill. Finally, she raised her hands in surrender, and he began to stab her. Somehow, she managed to get away. The killer carried on wandering the trail and shouted out to other campers to give him a flashlight. They didn't, thank goodness. All of these details are the same as the guy who approached us. Same age, same deranged eyes, same lack of a flashlight, same time to approach us, same look, same place. The more articles I read, the more I realized this psychopath had been roaming the trails, harassing hikers for a while. A few people had reported him, not just us. Apparently, this erratic and violent psychopath was well known to law enforcement along the Appalachian Trail. His name was James Sovereign Jordan. We got lucky. It could have been us. I'm a police officer in the southern U.S. and a suburban department of about 100 sworn-in officers. I work in a college town. I've been on about 10 years now, made sergeant 4 years ago, but at the time of this story I was just 2 years on, working night shift patrol. I've been lucky that not a lot has affected me, mentally anyway, during my career. I don't have kids. That's how it gets to you usually. You can build all the mental walls you want, but when you have an emotional connection with your kids and see something happening to kids, the walls mean nothing. Anyway, this one stuck with me. Still makes my hair stand on end, especially when it rains. It was September, just after midnight. I got put on a call of shots fired. Now, normally these calls turn out to be either fireworks or perhaps a car backfiring, mostly fireworks. So unless we get multiple calls on it, or a confirmed gunman, or someone confirmed wounded, we just send one unit. Just so happens that night it was me. The shots fired was reported around a college football stadium. This was during football season, so there were a bunch of really big white tents set up all around the parking lot for tailgaters. I notified dispatch that I was on the scene, started rolling through the parking lots, casting my spotlight here and there. It was raining, pretty heavily, and hard to see. About halfway through the lots, my spotlight illuminated the silhouette of a man sitting in a folding chair under one of those big tents. I pulled closer and lit him up, notified dispatch that I was out with one in the parking lot. His back was to me. He appeared to be hunched forward, as if his elbows were on his knees, and his head leaning forward. I walked towards him and started calling out to him. Can't remember exactly what I said, but something like, "Hey man, you okay? You heard anything strange? Can you come talk to me?" He didn't move or answer. As I drew closer, I lit him up with my flashlight. I then noticed the outline of a shotgun on the pavement next to him. Combined with him not answering and the nature of the call, it was enough for me to break leather and have dispatch hold the channel. I kept calling to him as I approached, asking him to show me his hands. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. My handgun had a Streamlight TLR-1 light on it, so I had him lit up. 6 feet underneath the tent with him. 5 feet. 4 feet. I close on him, come around to the front of him. Shotgun suicides are difficult. Often if they put the barrel under their chin, the blast from the barrel will blow the gun out from under their chin before the shot even hits them. There was a guy in my hometown that succeeded in a shotgun suicide only because he did it in front of a pond. Put the barrel under his chin, pulled the trigger, only managed to blow his face off. Coroner said he probably ran around screaming through that hole that used to be his mouth before he drowned in the pond. This guy succeeded. Blew his head clean off. You do this job long enough, you notice the funny little details. His elbows were indeed resting on his knees. It was as though he blew his head off, set the shotgun on the ground next to him, and then leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees to think about what he had done. At the time, I noticed that even though I was under the tent with him, it felt like it was still raining. And then I looked up.